Next property, 1478 Pinecrest Drive. Opening bid $3,500. James Harrington nearly spat out his coffee, the bitter liquid burning his throat as he swallowed too quickly. The county courthouse steps were sparsely populated this dreary Tuesday morning, most of the regular auction attendees discouraged by the steady drizzle. Harrington had almost skipped it himself, but a decade in real estate investing had taught him that rainy days often yielded the best opportunities. Properties in Pine Grove Estates typically started at least $250,000 at auction. He glanced around at the sparse crowd, mostly curious onlookers, not serious investors. Only 7 people stood huddled under the courthouse overhang, most of them clerks and county employees on their coffee breaks. $3,500, he called out, his voice echoing in the damp air. He expected immediate competition. The name Pine Grove Estates usually triggered a bidding war. The auctioneer, a heavyset man with thinning gray hair and decades of experience, waited a moment, scanning the small gathering. $3,500 going once. Harrington's heart raced. Something was off. He quickly pulled up property records on his phone. Last sold for $285,000, currently valued around $300,000. No liens except the recent HOA one. The property taxes were current, the mortgage in good standing. This wasn't a bank foreclosure. $3,500 going twice. His finger hovered over the county tax assessor page, showing property taxes paid in full. This wasn't a tax foreclosure either, just an HOA lien for $600 in unpaid dues, ballooned with penalties and legal fees. Sold for $3,500. Harrington's momentary triumph was tempered by unease. In 15 years of property investing, he'd never seen such a massive disparity between property value and sale price. He approached the auctioneer afterward, paperwork in hand. "What's the catch with this one, Bill? Environmental issues? Foundation problems?" Bill shrugged, gathering his files. "HOA foreclosure. They have priority lien status in this county." Owner never responded to any notices apparently. 2 weeks later, Harrington stood in Marcus's bedroom, surrounded by military commendations and family photos. A displayed Purple Heart made his stomach tighten. The house was immaculate. No structural issues, no hidden problems. Just a perfectly maintained home still filled with someone else's life. His contractor, Miguel, paused in the doorway, tool belt hanging heavy on his hips. "Boss, there's a full dress uniform in the closet. This guy's definitely active military." Harrington picked up a framed photo from the nightstand. Marcus in combat gear with his unit, standing in front of a helicopter in a dusty landscape. Recent, by the look of it. "Find out where he is," Harrington said quietly, replacing the photo. "This doesn't feel right." He wandered into the kitchen, finding a calendar on the refrigerator. Red marker circled a date 14 months in the future. "Homie," written in bold letters with an American flag drawn beside it. Miguel's voice called from the living room. His mails piled up inside the box. "Looks like the post office was holding deliveries, but recently started bringing them again." Harrington leaned against the counter, conflict brewing inside him. The purchase was legal. He'd done everything by the book. But the story told by this house suggested something had gone terribly wrong. "Make some calls," he told Miguel. "See if you can track down any information on the owner through veterans organizations." But Miguel's preliminary searches hit military privacy walls. The VA wouldn't release information. The local veterans group knew of Marcus, but had no current contact details. Meanwhile, the clock was ticking on Harrington's flip schedule, and a young family, the Dorseys, had already toured the property twice, showing serious interest. They'd offered $280,000, with a closing date just 3 weeks away. That evening, Harrington sat in his car outside the property, wrestling with his conscience. The law was on his side. Business was business. But as rain began to tap against his windshield, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was profiting from someone else's misfortune, someone who might not even know what had happened yet. Eleanor Winters, president of the Pine Grove Estates HOA, tapped her manicured fingernail against Marcus's file. The boardroom was half empty for the monthly meeting. with only the most dedicated committee members present on a rainy Tuesday evening. 3 months of unpaid dues, she announced, her voice echoing slightly in the community center room. And he hasn't responded to any notices. Robert Chen, the treasurer, adjusted his glasses. How much are we talking about here? $600 total, Eleanor replied, her lips pressing into a thin line. Plus the late fees, which brings it to $850. Isn't he military? Asked Diane Foster, a newer board member who'd moved in just 6 months ago. I saw him in uniform once, helping the Abernethys with their moving boxes. Eleanor's shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly. Military or not, rules are rules. We have his email on file, and he's ignored everything. If we make exceptions, soon everyone will expect special treatment. What Eleanor didn't mention was that she had only used the physical address for notices. The HOA management software had experienced an unresolved glitch during their recent system upgrade. The secondary contact information for homeowners had been partially erased, with military emails and emergency contacts among the data casualties. Marcus's alternate contact details had vanished from their records, a fact discovered by their part-time administrator just yesterday. Carol. Eleanor addressed the administrator sitting quietly in the corner. Have we followed all legal notification procedures? Carol hesitated, thinking about the system error report still sitting in her inbox. We've sent physical notices to the property, she answered carefully. But I think there was an issue with. Thank you, Carol, Eleanor interrupted. So we're within our rights to proceed with a lien. She glanced at the other board members, all in favor. Meanwhile, 6,000 miles away in Afghanistan, Marcus huddled over a satellite phone in a crowded communications tent. Sand perpetually coated everything despite their best efforts, and the connection crackled with static. Everything looks good, Mom, he said, checking his banking app during his precious 15 minutes of weekly personal communication. His mortgage payment had posted. The utilities appeared normal. The HOA payment still showed as processing, a status it had maintained for months due to the routing error, creating a perfect digital blind spot. The house is okay, his mother asked, her voice wavering with the tenuous connection. Far as I know, Marcus replied. Diego would have told me if there was anything wrong. Back in Pine Grove Estates, Diego's truck cruised past Marcus's house at dusk, just as he promised his friend. From the street, the property looked perfectly maintained, the lawn mowed by the service Marcus had hired, the porch light automatically switching on with the timer. Diego slowed, checking for obvious problems, then continued home, satisfied everything was in order. He never walked to the front door, where a foreclosure notice was now taped beside the doorbell, partially hidden by the shadow of the porch column and the decorative wreath that Mrs. Abernathy had hung there as a welcome home gesture for when Marcus returned. In her living room across the street, Mrs. Abernathy addressed an envelope to her nephew in the Navy. She glanced out at Marcus's home, noticing the official-looking paper on the door. Probably one of those package delivery notices, she murmured to herself, making a mental note to check it tomorrow. By morning, she would forget, distracted by news that her sister had been hospitalized. At the law offices of Bradshaw and Mitchell, attorney James Bradshaw reviewed the Pine Grove Estates HOA foreclosure filing. Standard procedure, nothing unusual, a homeowner behind on dues, properly notified according to state law. He signed the paperwork authorizing the next step in the process, unaware of the uniformed soldier whose life was about to unravel with each document stamped and filed. The clock on the courthouse wall ticked steadily forward, marking time as bureaucracy moved methodically toward catastrophe. Marcus parked his rental car in front of his house, exhaustion weighing on him after 20 hours of travel. His duffel bag sat heavy on the passenger seat, filled with sand-worn uniforms, and the few personal items that had accompanied him halfway around the world. The afternoon sun felt different here, softer, more welcoming than the harsh glare of Afghanistan. The smile that had carried him through 3 layovers vanished when he noticed unfamiliar details. New landscaping where his mother's rose bushes had been, fresh blue paint replacing his tan siding, and a child's red bicycle leaning against the porch railing. Maybe Diego did some renovations, he murmured, trying to quell the rising unease as he approached his front door. His key didn't work. The familiar brass lock had been replaced with a sleek silver keypad. When he rang the doorbell, Staff Sergeant Marcus Reynolds ran his hand along the kitchen counter he had installed himself last summer. Feeling the smooth granite beneath his calloused fingers, dawn light filtered through the windows of the home he had sacrificed so much to own. At 32, after 3 tours in Iraq and years of living in barracks and rental apartments, this modest 3-bedroom in Pine Grove Estates represented everything he'd fought for: security, achievement, and the future he'd sworn to protect. "You're sure you've got everything covered?" his best friend Diego asked, hefting the last duffel bag filled with tactical gear. Diego had driven down from Fort Bragg to see him off, a tradition they'd maintained since their first deployment together 10 years ago. Marcus nodded confidently, showing Diego the bank statements on his phone. Mortgage, utilities, HOA fees, all automatic payments. Nothing to worry about for 14 months. He scrolled through the recurring payment schedule, each green checkmark a small comfort. "I've even built in a cushion in case anything goes up." "What about that dragon lady who runs your HOA? The one who cited you for having your garbage can out 10 minutes too long?" Diego asked, only half joking. Marcus grimaced. "Eleanor Winters. Yeah, I emailed the HOA office with my deployment dates and emergency contact info. Even dropped a hard copy at their office." He handed Diego a spare key, their hands clasping briefly. "Just drive by occasionally. Make sure the place hasn't burned down or been ticketed for improper lawn ornaments." The 2 men walked through the house one last time, Marcus mentally cataloging his possessions. The living room wall displayed his commendations, including a bronze star and purple heart. His father's flag, folded into a tight triangle, sat in a case on the mantel. Family photos lined the hallway: his mother at graduation, his sister's wedding, his nephews he watched grow up between deployments. In the master bedroom, Marcus zipped his service laptop into his carry-on. "All my documents are in the fireproof safe in the closet. Password is Mom's birthday, same as always." Diego nodded, watching his friend take one last look around. "You built a good life here, man." "Planning to build more when I get back," Marcus said quietly. "Thinking about proposing to Lila when I return." "No shit? That's awesome." Diego clapped him on the shoulder. "All the more reason to make sure this place stays perfect." As they loaded the truck, Marcus's neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy, waved from across the street. "You stay safe over there, young man," she called out. "I'll keep an eye on things." Marcus waved back, grateful for the tight-knit street. Between Diego's occasional visits, Mrs. Abernathy's watchful eye, and his automated finances, he felt confident his home would be waiting for him. What Marcus couldn't see was the notification that flashed briefly on his banking app as his truck pulled away from the curb. "System update scheduled. Please reconfirm automatic payments after maintenance." The message disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, buried beneath deployment checklists and goodbye texts from family. The afternoon sun glinted off his freshly washed windows as Marcus took one final glance in the rear-view mirror. Pine Grove Estates receded behind him, the American flag on his porch fluttering in the spring breeze. From the passenger seat, Diego chatted about their mutual friends still stationed overseas, but Marcus's thoughts remained fixed on the home shrinking in the distance. In 14 months, he thought, he'd be right back here, turning the key in his door, sleeping in his own bed. The house represented more than just an investment. It was the first place that truly felt like his. A foundation, a beginning. As they merged onto the highway, Marcus's phone synced with his truck's Bluetooth, and the message from his banking app disappeared forever, lost in the digital shuffle of a life being put on pause.